Johannesburg, the city of gold in South Africa, is presently hosting dignitaries and leaders from 69 different countries and most of them from Global South. Why? 15th BRICS Summit is currently going on in South Africa and it's the first in-person summit since 2019 due to the COVID outbreak. All the leaders of BRICS, Prime Minister Mr. Modi, President Xi Jinping, President Lula da Silva of Brazil and President Ramaphosa of South Africa, all are there in South Africa, except for President Putin, who has avoided a possible arrest due to the warrant issued against him by the International Criminal Court, and South Africa is a signatory to ICC. But President Putin's Foreign Minister, Mr. Sergei Lavrov, is present. Also, this is the first in-person summit of the leaders ever since the outbreak of Russia-Ukraine crisis. And even Mr. Modi and Xi Jinping would be meeting face-to-face for the first time since the beginning of standoff at LAC from 2020. Though they did briefly exchange pleasantries during 2022 G20 Bali Summit. It is expected that both the leaders, PM Modi and President Xi Jinping, would hold bilaterals on the sidelines of BRICS Summit. Now, let us briefly understand what BRICS is. The acronym BRICS stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa. The term was first coined by Goldman Sachs economist Jim O'Neill in 2001. He used the term in his paper to describe fast-growing economies and to make a case for changing the framework for global economic governance. The key objectives of the group are economic cooperation, developmental financing, and also to promote democratization of international global order. Overall, it is to create a multipolar world by checking the Western hegemony in the existing multilateral platforms of today. It is talking about inclusive world order. They first met for the first time in St. Petersburg in Russia in 2006. It was a foreign ministers level meeting. But the real boost to the group came after the 2008 global financial crisis, and 2009 BRICS had its first summit in Russia at Regensburg. 2010, 1 year later, South Africa joined it, and since then the acronym BRICS. Today, the group stands for 40% of world population, 1/4 of global economy and 1/5 of global trade. Now, let's come back to the present ongoing BRICS Summit. What are the main agendas in this year's summit? This year's summit, this time, agendas are: number 1, options to challenge dollar dominance; number 2, possibility of expanding the group beyond the 5 members, because 40 countries are standing in a queue to become the members, including countries like Saudi Arabia, Iran, Venezuela, Egypt, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Pakistan and so on. Now, let us first talk about options to challenge dollar dominance. Now, what is de-dollarization that the world is talking about? De-dollarization means reducing the dependence on dollar. Why? Because right now what we see is US is using dollar as a political tool. Countries are being imposed with economic sanctions. So naturally, countries are looking for another option, or they are looking for reduction in the dominance of dollar. Now, it is easier said than done. Why? Because still dollar is the king. If we look at the statistics, today 60% of forex reserve is in dollar, 40% of global debt is issued in dollar, and 80% of foreign exchange trading is happening in dollar. Even the commodities like oil and gold, they are traded in dollar. And also the cryptocurrencies are paired almost parallel, exclusively parallel to dollar. So that is why dollar is still ruling, and it is very difficult to do away with the dollar in the near future. Now let us come to the BRICS. BRICS has been talking about reduction of dollar dominance. And what are the options before BRICS right now? One is to come out with a BRICS currency. The option is completely no at the moment. Why? because of issues amongst the members. Within this group only, different members have different viewpoints. China wants its renminbi, its own currency, to become the dominant currency, because already so many countries are with China through BRI, they are linked with by China through BRI, they are doing trade with China. India does not want Chinese currency to take the dominant position. And then there are, of course, there are issues of exchange rate volatilities. There's a lot of volatility in the exchange rates of different countries, and then we all have to come together as a group for an exchange rate mechanism. And also, if you see, BRICS has an institution called CRA, Contingency Reserve Arrangement. BRICS has come up with New Development Bank and CRA in 2015, but this CRA is not functioning properly. So, at the moment, the BRICS currency option is almost negligible. Now, what is plan B? Plan B is that countries, especially India, also want to promote, they prefer to do trade in local currencies. India is promoting for trade in local currencies like we are doing with Russia, rupee-ruble trade. Now, let us talk about our second issue that is going on, that is being discussed in the present BRICS Summit, that is about membership. Now, if we look at the objective of BRICS, BRICS is a body trying to check the hegemony of the West. It is talking about making the international relations more democratic, more inclusive, and that's why BRICS should come up as a truly multilateral platform representing diverse geography, and hence expansion is must. India and Brazil are not for it right now. Brazil feels that its influence might get reduced if the new members from South American bloc join it. India does not want expansion just for the sake of expansion. Why? Because otherwise it will create more chaos in the group. It will become more difficult to come to a least common political denominator, and also there will be more challenges in dealing with bilateral issues amongst the members. These bilateral issues might hijack the agenda, the real purpose, the real objective of BRICS. As we have already seen, it has happened in SAARC, and also now we are witnessing in your SCO. India wants that there should be a clear guideline, there should be clear rules for making new members. There should be a clear-cut filter for bringing in new membership. Hence, our stand is very clear. This agenda is still a work in progress. But on the other hand, others, especially China and Russia, they want the expansion. And why do they want the expansion? Because if we see the current global order, the countries are getting divided into democracies versus autocracies. And US is trying to maintain its hegemony through G7, through G20, and through various other multilateral platforms. Hence, China and Russia want the expansion to balance the US influence in G7, G20, etc. groupings. They want it to hedge against the West. But hurriedly expansion is not the answer to that. Rather, it would create more problems. So, let us see how this issue would be tackled in the coming 2 days of the BRICS Summit. But one thing we cannot forget, and the fact is that diversity is the strength of BRICS. BRICS is a very diverse group. It is more diverse than even United Nations Security Council. Its diversity is the key to the BRICS grouping. It's a powerful voice against the current polarized world. Imagine, had there been no BRICS today, then G7, G20 would have not stimulated the global south. So, BRICS is important, and it is very, very important, and it is the need of the present times to properly balance the global order. And for that, the group needs to resolve its internal crisis, its internal conflicts, and truly stand up for its objectives. And also, the group needs to expand its horizon beyond economics. It should venture into other areas like climate change, global peace, freedom of navigation, digitalization, etc. Hope this summit is a key step in that direction. Thank you.